Hey guys, Tarek Merryface here. This is like the seventh attempt to record this every time the aircraft volume is too loud. It's on pause right now. Um, so this is a really long overdue video. Part two of the Bendix King tutorial. Took ages to do this. Anyway, and I'm just here chilling out, looking at Sim 720's Dundee airfield, and this is really cool. Um, Although they've got everything modeled except for the Tayside Aviation airplanes. But right there, that's Tayside Aviation Air Club. I went there last weekend to fly with them. It was awesome. Uh, Dundee's lots of fun, and anyways, it's good kind of mixture of stuff to for us to have a look at. That basically what we want to look at for today's tutorial. Sorry, getting completely distracted. This is just awesome scenery. I'm gonna go to the cabin, cockpit, pilot, uh, play, and turn on and off the avionics. Turn back on, and I'm gonna show you the very first bit. Let's get cracking. Today we're gonna look at a lot of things. Radio stack. Cool. Notice how they've got this FLT timer that started as soon as we turned on the avionics. That is the flight time timer. And basically, when you turn on the engine and you turn the avionics on, this will record the entire time it takes for the entire flight. So just before you turn off the avionics, you can note down how long the flight was and then shut down the avionics and the aircraft. Pretty sweet. Got another function here, which is the ET. That's elapsed time. And you can reset that, and it's really cool. This one is always on the move, no matter what you do. So we can reset this by just pressing this button, and it starts from 0 and starts counting straight away from the top. And this is cool, for example, if you need a quick set for 1 minute holding patterns and you're very aware of the time. For example, if you're an autopilot, then all you need to do is basically just use that. If you're using hand flying, for example, and you want to set the time, basically a countdown, you can do reset it, or you don't need to, but press on it until ET flashes, and you see this stops. So you can use the outer button for minutes, you can use the inner knob for tens of seconds, and if you push on it and pull it by left click, you can do this individual seconds. So let's push it back in, do 0, and then 0 minutes, and then when we finished, we decided amount of time here, let's do 3 seconds for the sake of it. What you'll see when I press it, start counting down, and then we will get the alarm, and it'll start counting down to negative, and it starts flashing, and the alarm won't stop until you press this. Very good for getting your attention. Bringing back that up, and the flight time reappears. Fantastic stuff. I'm just looking at this stuff on the ground while we can. Here you've got the autopilot. It is set. It is not on, as in it's on but not active. And here you've got this 000 feet thing. Now, before we start looking at this stuff, understand that the CAP 140 has its own barometer. It's completely separate from this altimeter here. So you could put any altimeter setting here. This one would have a separate one. So if you had completely different altimeter settings, you might put 5,000 feet here, and here you might get only 2,000 or 12,000. So you don't know. So what you have to do is set the correct barometer. If you're below transition altitude and you're on QNH, and QNH happens to be different from the standard of 1013, then you can go ahead, press this barrel button, and modify it by using these these switches right here. There's a way to change it back to mercury, inches of mercury. I don't know how. If anyone tells me, if anyone knows, please tell me, because I would really like it. Anyway, so there you go. You got that. Now, you've got this 000 thing. So we can choose the altitude we want to fly at. But there's something else we can do. At every 1,000 feet, it will give you an alarm. So if you're 1,000 feet away from your, below your objective or above your objective, and you're going towards it, an alarm will sound. If you're at your altitude and you descend by 200 feet or more, an alarm will sound. Now, the alarm sounds like this. Look, we're at 0 feet because Dundee is sea level. So if I just turn it once, you hear the alarm. That's the alarm that will sound. And that's really, really cool. So now we're going to learn how to use the autopilot by doing a departure. And what we'll do is we'll put the autopilot at 2,000 feet. So 3,500 feet. So the outer knob turns the thousands of feet. So 3,000. And the inner knob turns the hundreds of feet. So we do 3,500. Sorted. Happy days. Okay, so let's just do a quick, let's call it departure brief, which is not really because but yeah. So our departure brief is the following. We're going to take off from the runway 28. We're going to maintain a heading of, what we're going to want to do is we're going to maintain a heading of 270-ish. We're going to put our heading bug on 300. This is called the heading bug, the orange thing. And at 500 feet, we're going to go look at this, and we're going to activate the autopilot, activate the heading selector so that it turns the aircraft onto 300, and we will make sure the aircraft climbs towards 3,500 feet. We're going to have a look at that right now. Before we do that, however, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mess around with the frequencies just so that we can retune them later. Sorry, just messing about with frequencies just so that we can retune them later. I should have done that before the video. My apologies. I apologize. Okay. Please forgive me. Yeah, cool. Happy days. Right. Now you know how to do standby frequency, something I wanted to look at later. Oh well, we'll look at it again later. So we're going to take off, climb to 500 feet, activate the autopilot, turn to heading 300, make our way to 3,500 feet, then we'll make our way towards the Perth VOR, and we'll work things from there. Alright, so let's go ahead and look at the pilot view. I'm using Easy Dock. You might not see the Easy Dock window, but it is there. Let's go ahead, put 10 sets of 10 degrees of flaps, and look at that, we're ready for takeoff. What a fantastic checklist. Full power. Oh, releasing parking brakes would not be a bad idea. One second, guys. I'm getting really worried that I have to re-record this, so I'm going to go ahead and increase the volume because I am sick of re-recording this all the time. Hello. Cool. I think that'll do. Yeah, just making sure, guys, because this is the 7th time I'm recording this, or 6th time. I lost count. Right, let's go. Okay, so the needle airspeed is alive. 55. Look at that. Sun's setting. Let's turn on some lights. I'm going to turn on every light pretty much. Great. So climbing, no problems there. Look at the beautiful graphics. I love this. My computer might not take it, but it's worth it. Okay, so we're a little slow, so let's go ahead and trim for a little faster airspeed. Flaps up. And 500. So let's go ahead and have a look at the radio stack. We're going to go ahead and press on this a couple of seconds. There you go. This pops up. We're climbing at 700 feet per minute, and it's on the roll. We don't want that. We want to click on heading. So let's look at this straight away. See the altitude indicator indicating a turn, and the gyro confirming that turn, turning towards 300. And we're still climbing, and we're going to be climbing at a constant vertical speed of 700 feet, but obviously there's some local stuff affecting the flight. I'm guessing some thermals or something like that. So, but let's look at the VS. This is on VS mode, which is vertical speed. Now this is the altitude we want to reach, or this is the altitude the alarm is set right now. We will not reach this altitude. We will reach this altitude, but we will not level out. We will probably fly right through it, and that's because we haven't armed the altimeter. So let's look at the VS though. We got press up, increase the rate of climb. There you go, 1,000. If you press down, decrease the rate of climb. Pretty simple stuff. Now we've got 3,500 feet. If I press arm, alt arm appears. Now that is what will allow the aircraft to level off at 3,500 feet. We're reaching 1,500 feet, and now we're on heading, and we're flying at a heading of 300. So let's reduce power a little bit, and I'm just going to bring out this thing, and there you go. I don't need a pedestal, but whatever. Much nicer. Can definitely see stuff now. Okay. Scotland gets dark early. Okay, good stuff. So now we're going to go, while we're climbing, we're going to go ahead and tune onto the Perth VOR, which is a frequency of 110.4. So we've looked at this in the first tutorial, 110.4. So pull this out, 4. And we're going to switch it. And now we need to make sure it's the correct VOR. So we're going to click on nav1 and right-click this, pull idents to listen to the VOR Morse code. Let's give it a second. I can't hear it for some reason. It could be as well because we're on the wrong frequency. That usually helps. That's why we say out loud 110.4. Switch it. Now we pull it, and you can see the needle's alive. Check it's the correct one. Press nav 1. Pull ident. Wait a little bit. FSX is a little slower. And there you go. And check the Morse code's correct. Let's wait a little further again. PTH is what we're looking for, so give it a sec. FSX is slower than real life. That's PTH. Fantastic. So we can put this in and turn this off. Okay, so we've got the VOR, and it's active. It's here. But what we want is we want to fly towards it. So instead of having to, once we line this up, which I'm sure you all know how to, and you'd know that it's the wrong direction. So let's line it up roughly. It doesn't have to be precise, more or less. There you go. Yeah, there you go. We can see that we are a little off. We're 60 degrees off. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn a heading of 270. And as soon as we're on that heading, we're going to go ahead and 30 degrees difference roughly between 240 and 270. And now we're going to press the nav button. And you can see the heading starts flashing, nav is on arm, sticks on heading until heading stops flashing. Right, now what's going on? Oh, you heard the buzz, by the way. Cool. Put in a little bit of power. So what's going on is that it's still using the heading autopilot system, but it's not using the heading bug. What it's doing now is that it's finding an angle to intercept the radial of the VOR. Now what's going to happen is that instead of flying straight over the VOR nicely, it's going to go weaving a little bit, and that's just because we're far away. Don't worry about these crazy things, it's just stupid turbulence that's got on AccuSim. It'll maintain 3,500 more or less. Okay, so we've got this. Let's reduce power a little bit. It's a little too much power right there. So it's still using the heading system, and that's what we have to use for now. And so what we're going to do, though, in case it does manage to level off before intercept it, be established on the radio before we intercept the VOR, we're going to go put the heading indicator on 245. 245, roughly. That should be exact, just for demonstration purposes. Okay. So there you go. So far we've learned how to climb using a constant vertical speed, maintain a heading, reach an altitude and stick to it, although the autopilot is doing a pretty lousy job of that right now. And we're learning how to intercept a VOR radio. I've just shown you how to do it. Show the radio you want to intercept, and then press the nav hold. And as you can see, the heading disappeared, nav arm disappeared, and nav's on the top. That means the autopilot is now using the nav system. This is controlling where the autopilot goes. So ideally what we're going to want is that for this to be straight down, across the circle, and at the same time the airplane will be heading on a 245 course. Sorry. So there you go. So far that's what we learned. Perth VOR does not have a DME. So what we're going to do is we're going to tune in to the Aberdeen DME. DME and VORs are usually coupled on the same frequency. However, unlike the default FSX airplanes, they usually do not auto-tune. They use the same frequency, but they do not auto-tune. So you're going to have to separately tune the DME. So the DME for Aberdeen, and this is just for illustrative purposes, so you can learn how to use it, is 114.3. So we're going to go down to the DME and look at another VOR, a completely different VOR, which is on a actual, put it on VOR on the nav2 of 114.3. There you go. As you can see, we've managed to more or less starting to get established. 114.3. This comes alive. We don't need to align it. And now we're going to go to the DME. As you can see, it's not connected to either one. We're going to go to 114.3. Wait a little bit, and this pops up. This is our range from the VOR. If we click on this, is ground speed and time to get there. So you'll find we have a ground speed of about 110 knots relative to the DME. And it would take us 36 minutes to get there. Of course, this is changing because we're moving away from it. And as you can see, this has gone completely. We went over the cone of confusion, and the autopilot went straight away into the heading mode. That's why we're still flying straight. If we'd left it here, the autopilot would have turned when we'd flown over the VOR. Equally, if we change frequencies while in the nav mode, the autopilot will automatically change to the heading mode. So there we go. So back to the DME. This is telling us our ground speed relative to the DME and how long it will take to get there. And since we're moving away, the minutes are increasing. Fantastic. That's great. So we know how to use the VORs and the DME systems. Now let's learn how to use the ADF. We want to go to Dundee ADF, which is quite close by. It's for where we took off. And that has an ADF frequency of 394. So as you can see, we can't modify a standby frequency right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this freak and switch, and the standby frequency will appear. The outer knob controls the hundreds. The inner knob will control the tens, and if you pull it, the wholes, the ones. So what we need to do is put in 394. So 9, push it in, 3, 9, and then big one, 394. Change that, and the ADF comes alive. Fantastic, good stuff. Now you got this BFO thing. BFO would only be available if the ADF could actually produce. Can't talk anymore. Could produce a Morse code, and it can't, so it's not going to work. Okay. So as you can see, this shows you the mode. Here it's on the timer, but if I do this, FRQ comes up just saying that it's talking about frequency. So we're already on the frequency we want, and as you can see, the needle is pointing down. But this, as you might notice, is not giving us the same heading as we're traveling, because it's a fixed compass card. So what we need to do right now is we could figure out the differential, the relative heading, which is not difficult to do, but it's using a little bit of our resources. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our current heading of 245 onto the top, along this line, 245. And that tells us that we need to turn to a heading of 075. So we're going to go ahead and use the autopilot and turn to a heading of 075. There you go. Roughly that. I'm really tired, guys, so I'm sorry. Okay, so now we're turning at a heading of 075. And as you see, the needle turns around with us. And obviously what you'll notice is that when we turn, we cover space when we turn. We have a radius of turn. So obviously when we turn around completely 180 degrees, we're going to be off axis. So we're going to have to recorrect the relative bearing. The further away this place is, the more this is true. And the closer you get, the more the needle wavers, and the more you have to correct. This is very basic NDB navigation using the ADF. So as you can see, it's establishing roughly on the 260. So next thing we need to do is change that back to 075. Always do that first. 075, and see that a heading of about 085. So we're going to go ahead and turn to a heading of 085, roughly, give or take. And the needle aligns with the top. And as long as this needle is aligned with the vertical bit, and as you see we've gone a little too far, then we're flying towards the VOR, the NDB. And if you don't believe me, let's go ahead and have a look outside, and you'll see that we are actually flying towards Dundee, which is right behind those lakes. It's this area here. So there you go, guys. I'm just going to pause this so you can hear me a little better. It'd be good if I was actually on the sim. Whew, that's very loud. Thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Next time, we'll look at the approach. Oh, I forgot to look at the reverse. We'll look at that next time. Shoot. Okay. Give us, that way it spreads it out a little more as well. Okay, so we've got two functions of the autopilot we haven't looked at. We haven't looked at the reverse course, and we haven't looked at the approach. Both are easy. Reverse course is usually used for the American style of reverse VOR approaches that we don't use in Europe. However, in Europe we can use them for other stuff, so it's quite useful. And then the approach for, approaching an airfield using the autopilot to do that. But that's the next lesson. So what have we looked at today? Today we've looked at how to tune and track towards a VOR, very basics. Same with the ADF. We've looked at the basics of the autopilot, the heading mode, the nav mode, the altitude mode, keeping a constant vertical speed. We've looked at the NDB, how to tune a frequency on the NDB. We've looked at the time elapsed on how to do a countdown. We've also looked at the DME, how we can look at the DME, what kind of information it gives us. So we've done a lot. We really have done a lot in this tutorial. Guys, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments. I'll be sure to answer them. And if I don't know, I will admit that I don't know. But not only that, I'll go ahead and look up the answer and tell you what it is, because that's the kind of person I am. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe if you liked it, if you found it useful. Check out my other videos. I got some good videos. So I'm Tarek Merryface. I'll see you guys next time, and happy flying.